Hello. First tonight, the police in Kenya have told Look East that a couple from Essex were murdered in their own holiday home.
For many years, Norma Joel and his wife Rita owned a holiday home in Mombasa. Today, a police chief told us the crime was not a robbery which had gone wrong. The bodies were found 12 miles away. This report from Gareth George.
Norman and Rita Joel on their wedding day. A couple whose love affair with Africa was to end in a double tragedy. Earlier this month, the Joels were found stabbed to death at their holiday home in Mombasa, a city on the coast of Kenya they visited up to 4 times a year.
That's what they sort of live for. They always were looking forward to the next trip. They managed to get the money together somehow to get to the next trip, go out there, and they loved it out there.
These are the flats where the Joels lived in Norfolk Avenue in Leigh-on-Sea. Neighbours describe them as a bright and bubbly couple, and residents here are shaken by what's happened. Denise Matthews lives in the flat above the Joels. When they went to Africa, they'd bring her back presents.
They were just always friendly, always said hello if you went downstairs or passed by, and sometimes if they were going out in a car and I was going out, they would say, "Do you want to lift anywhere? Are we going anywhere near you?" Or if I saw them even over the park with the dogs, they would say, "Do you want to lift home?" Or, you know, anything like that. I think they would just help anybody, really. Just lovely people.
This is one of the Joels' last holiday snaps. The motive for their murder is unclear, but Kenyan police told Look East reports it was a suspected robbery were inaccurate.
It wasn't a robbery, and I repeat for the media and for the public that it wasn't a robbery. This was purely murder in a house. They tried to conceal it by dumping the body 20 kilometers from the scene, which was discovered after 12 hours.
The Foreign Office warns travellers not to walk around Mombasa after dark because it says attacks and muggings can happen at any time. 3 men are expected to appear in a Kenyan court tomorrow in connection with the Joels murder. Gareth George, BBC Look East.
The former motor racing champion Damon Hill has told Look East he's confident that Formula One will return to Silverstone. The plan was to move the race to Donington Park in Leicestershire, but today the final deadline passed without enough money being raised to upgrade Donington. Let's get the latest now from James Burridge at Silverstone.
Stuart, yes, the deadline has passed for Donington. Everyone's attention is now turning to Silverstone. And today we found out just a little bit more. We know there is a contract here with Silverstone. It's been looked at by the board. The problem is it's exactly the same contract of about 18 months or so ago when the two were at loggerheads, F1 management at Silverstone, about the terms of that deal. Richard Phillips is the managing director of Silverstone, and he told me where we are right now.
We're in dialogue, but it has to be a commercially viable contract. We don't get any government support, so...
When you say commercially viable, what do you want from this deal?
Well, we want it to be fair for both sides, really. We definitely want to have the Grand Prix back at Silverstone. You know, we do a good job with it. Big crowds come to Silverstone. But on the other hand, we can't afford to subsidise it. We're not, the motorsport is fairly marginal at that circuit level, so, we have to be realistic.
Well, today I spoke with Damon Hill, who's the president of the BRDC, the club which owns Silverstone, and he told me that he was optimistic a deal could be done, but it had to be an affordable deal. He told me the contract can be any combination of years, but it has to be affordable. There's a huge desire to get a deal done here in Northamptonshire, but there's an obligation to the business side of things here. They simply cannot take too much of a financial risk and repeat what Donington has done in the past 18 months.
So, James, when are they going to get all of this sorted out?
It's a great question, Stuart. This weekend, of course, is the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. Plenty of attention will be focused on that. It's the last of the season. Bernie Ecclestone is going there. Richard Phillips is on his way to Abu Dhabi now. And, of course, next year is the Formula One Grand Prix season. It starts, of course, and there's a Grand Prix there on July the 11th, which says British Grand Prix. The problem is there's nothing there which takes its place.
James, thank you very much.
Campaigners are claiming victory tonight after a controversial plan to change flight paths in the region was put on hold again. The National Air Traffic Service has spent the best part of 2 years trying to win people round, but now it says everything is on hold for at least another year.
No to mass! No This was an issue that outraged people across the region. There were marches, public meetings, petitions, as residents, local councils, even the horse racing industry came together to fight the plans. Under the proposals, the holding stacks for flights into Luton and Stansted would have moved deeper into the countryside. The village of East Hatley in Cambridgeshire was one of many who'd have noticed a big increase in noise. There's delight here that the plans have been kicked into the long grass.
The people spoke and Nats were forced to listen, and in that listening they have given up, I hope forever, but certainly for a very long time they've given up their proposals.
Nats published the proposals at the beginning of last year. It said they needed to be in place quickly because of the urgent need for more airspace. But after a summer of protests, the consultation period was extended. Then, at the beginning of this year, a second consultation was launched, promising a final decision by the summer. Now the company says it's parking the plans and any further talk of change until next September at the earliest. It says the downturn in air travel means there isn't the urgency anymore. Critics say the company has been stung by the outcry.
And they came out with something which was effectively a fait accompli. And of course there was absolutely a revolt all over East Anglia, and totally justifiably too. It was an appallingly inefficient, incompetent exercise.
Nats warns that doing nothing in the long term is not an option, but the fact that such an expensive consultation's been put on hold is a sign of how embarrassed it is by the whole affair. Nats will have to come up with new proposals at some stage, but they're now likely to be far less ambitious. And the company's learned that any changes it does make will have to be made with the support of public opinion. Andrew Sinclair, BBC Look East.
Coming up later in the programme, some of the highlights from...
Tornadoes from RAF Marham in Norfolk have arrived in Afghanistan for a 3-month tour of duty. Their aim is to win the confidence of the Afghan people. So how do they make sure the risk to civilians is kept to a minimum?
Some of the most potent weapons for the mission in Afghanistan, Tornado GR4s. But air power can be controversial. Civilian casualties when an airstrike goes wrong do little to win hearts and minds. So pilots from RAF Marham train intensively before they go. With the soldiers they'll be helping in Helmand.
As we arrive, they will give us a full picture of the ground situation. From there, we will then use that information to work out our tactics. Any information particularly we need to know about friendly forces and any civilians in the area. But from then on, accurate coordinates and their position is what I need to know.
We're currently in the overhead in the block 11 to 12,000 feet.
But it means communication with those on the ground is crucial.
Initially request a show of force.
This training ground stands in for Helmand. Soldiers learn how to be forward air controllers so they can talk the pilots in when they need their support from the air. They must give the right information even in the midst of a firefight.
It's great training, but the difficult part is the jet's travelling at over 500 miles an hour. You have less than 60, if you're coming in low level, you have less than 60 seconds to talk that jet onto, it might be one person laying an IED onto a road.
Mid-air refuelling means that Marham's pilots can spend up to 8 hours in the Afghan skies. They and their ground crews will be in the war-torn country until next autumn. Alex Dunlop, BBC Look East.